Hi, this is Tina Campbell, the New York Regional Partner of Master Networks, and we're doing a lunch and learn today with a friend of mine, Susan Lauer, and she's from Aspire Consulting. Hey, Susan, how you doing?
Hey, Tina, how are you?
Okay.
Um,
No, I was just going to tell them what our topic was because I just want to make sure I get this right, and then we'll talk about. I want to hear about you. So we're going to talk about today what are the 4 questions to answer for your business as we emerge from the current business environment. And this is something I particularly wanted you to come on and talk about because you are a business consultant. Now we have all these people that are, just kind of in this stage of holding or trying to figure out what's the next, when the gates open. So that's why I wanted to ask you to come on and talk about it. Particularly, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
sure, Tina. I started my business in 2006 with my business partner, Lori Cohn. We work in 3 main areas of consulting. We work with people on developing their leadership skills. We work with people on fixing their broken processes, and we work with them on strategic planning. We are also both certified business coaches, and we actually lead our resource group's coaching academy at this time. So we're the teachers of the coaches.
Of the coaches, that's right.
Yeah.
This is actually how we met, I think, through our friend Alan down in Delaware. I love him. So tell, because of this current business climate, so you had some thoughts that really changed my mind. I thought, oh, we'll just talk about a strategic plan, and then you said, well, wait a minute, there's some things to talk about in that before. So can you go into that?
Sure. We have been in contact with a number of our clients about taking a look at their strategic plans, because what was a strategic plan before does not make any sense right now. And rather than just throwing it out, to go back into some key parts of it and make some decisions based on that and reformulate your strategic plan. One of the things that we've been suggesting is that people think about reformulating their plan in 3 basic contexts. One is now. That's our number 1 phase now. How do you make sure that you are maintaining a financial stability for your business? The next phase is, as we reemerge, how do you make sure that your business is financially stable? And the third stage is when we're more into whatever our normal is, how can you thrive? So each one of these questions, to think through it in those 3 phases. How do you be stable now? How do you make your business financially stable? And then how do you thrive in the new environment?
Makes sense.
One of the first questions that we ask, when we go through a strategic plan, we kind of run through it, and then at the bottom, we say, okay, now you put this plan together. What were the assumptions that you built this plan on? People don't necessarily think about what those assumptions are. They just have things that they're assuming are going to happen. My business is going to increase to 10% that it has over the last 2 years, or my key employees are going to stay with me. So there are assumptions that people make. We ask them to put together their 4 or 5 top assumptions. And as we review plans, we go back to those assumptions frequently. So the first question is, which of your key assumptions still hold? Which of them hold now? Which will hold as we begin to come out of this? And then whatever our new world is like, which assumptions hold?
Are you able to give me, so if a person's going to think of their strategic plan, and maybe they have one, but they've never done this assumption thing, is it usually done that way that you think about, for instance, a market, like let's say you're a realtor and you were thinking about your basic assumption prior to March, let's say. You thought your assumption was you were going into a spring market, right? So do you suggest that something like that is that you think about your industry, you think about your, could you think of it as industry? Could you think of it as kind of the local where you are, even in the country type of thing, or you're a national company. I mean, can you think of it that way as far as assumptions are concerned?
Well, it's all about context, Tina. So your context significantly impacts the assumptions you make. So certainly a real estate agent is going to be different than a business consultant in terms of the way that they're being impacted now and the way that they'll be able to come out. And also the assumptions that they made at the beginning. I mean, whether when you write your strategic plan or someone helps you with your strategic plan, you actually write out the assumptions, which is best practices. But if you don't, if you go back to your plan, you can figure out what your assumptions were at the time.
Okay, I get it.
So it should be a question, but if it's not, it's there.
That's what I found so fascinating about what we were talking about prior to this call, because I just never thought about it, and I think that's what I really need to do, that I'm missing, because then what you're saying is that as to like you said, to stay financially stable in those first 3 phases that we're going to come out of the current, what's going to happen, right away, and then how to succeed. All of those things, assumptions are driven, right? They kind of drive all that.
Right. That's why sometimes people won't write them down, because they're assumptions, right? You just assume it's going to be true. But those assumptions we use with our clients all the time. When we go and do a check-in with them for their strategic plan, if they're not hitting their marks, it's typically one of 2 things. They're not implementing. It's sitting on the shelf. People aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Or some of their key assumptions are no longer holding. And you need to go back and look at those key assumptions. If you think you're implementing, what's wrong with the assumptions? And what do we need to change?
That's cool. And then that's where they can come to you. And they can come to you and Laurie to say, okay, either I have this or I have nothing, right? And then you can help them with the strategic plan. And then, or if they have a strategic plan, start talking about the assumptions and then how to go forward.
Right. And I would say that my thought about putting this lunch and learn together was, we're finding that our clients aren't really ready they haven't done the creative thinking to be ready to put together these types of plans, because that's what it's going to require. People are going to have to be creative. They're going to have to stretch their minds. They're going to have to include people that they never have before who have really good possibility thinking skills, and get some of these questions answered first. And then we can sit down. Of course, I mean, I've said to you in the past, if anyone wants to spend half an hour with me, I'll do that, help them out, get them started on that. That's not a big deal. Get people thinking about that type of thing,
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, seriously, I think that's the key. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I knew, we've had we've talked before, and I think one of the things that you're so good at is the critical thinking and helping people to define it and outline it, whereas they're too far in the trenches.
Thank you. Yeah. I would say maybe the next most important thing to think about is, how can you and your business take advantage of what we're now calling unforeseen positive consequences of this? What are the things that you've learned about your business that you never thought you could do it that way? And how can you build that into a plan for now, for when we first come out, and for when you're looking to thrive? A lot of people obviously have learned they don't need to go into the office, or they don't need to go into the office as much. Some people have learned that they can do their work, not only their work from home, but they can do networking from home, as we all know. So what are the things that you've learned? We've learned, or our clients have learned, that when we suggested to them in the past that we could do this virtually, and they didn't want to do it virtually, when we're doing like a leadership development group, strategic planning, they've now found out that we can. And so that's something that we're going to be able to leverage, is that we can do this virtually, save them money. Lori doesn't have to fly to Calgary, where she was supposed to be a few weeks ago. Save us time. She doesn't have to fly to Calgary, where she was going to be a few weeks ago. But what are those things for your business that you've learned because we've been forced to do things differently? And how can you leverage them going forward? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, that's really interesting, because how many people have just been in panic mode, right? So they're not doing any even creative, wait a minute, let me take a deep breath. Let me figure out what am I doing different in my processes? What's been working, what's not? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. So that is cool. I'm so glad we're giving people this reminder to breathe and to start thinking now.
Right. The third question, I would say the most important question that we're talking with people about inside of a strategic planning process, there's something called a SWOT. And you look at your internal strengths and weaknesses, the external opportunities and threats. So that kind of follows along with this last question that we asked. But on the internal side, it's time for everybody to be doing what they do best. Even if it's like your accountant doing the piece they do best, even if you're a solo entrepreneur, what do you do best? What can you be doing best? There's no more time for just doing something because it's making you a little money. What are your strengths?
Yeah.
What really are the things you do well? And how can you leverage that in your business or into a business that looks different than it does now? And the other part of the SWOT analysis is the opportunities and threats. So what do we think are going to be the continued threats out there to building your business? And what are the opportunities that you can take advantage of? How can you make sure that people know how unique you are? And if you look around at websites of your competitors, you'll probably find 5 words that describe how wonderful they are that are the same for each of them. So none of them are unique because they're all the same. They all say they're the fastest. They all say they're the most customer friendly. You know, really take time to think about what's going to make you unique to be able to take advantage of those opportunities that are going to be out there.
And then target those opportunities.
Right.
Rather than
Right.
throwing, that you throw something at the wall and hope it sticks,
Right. Right.
And we all know that takes time and energy, money. And it's a great time now to start thinking about it. Of course, some of those things, I mean, we don't really know about, but there's ways of at least funneling down, right? Through
Right.
the, everything that's going on, and kind of try to be really targeted and really clear. You're looking for clarity, I guess, right?
Right, as much as we can now. That's why I go back to saying I really like to think about it in these 3 stages, because we don't know how long they're going to last, right? At some point, we're going to be back to something that's our normal. It's not going to be what it was, but there will be some 3rd stage where people will be doing more work in a way like they used to. But we've got to get through this stuff first. And your preparation, our preparation, everybody's preparation needs to be, where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? Where are the opportunities and the threats? And how do I take advantage of putting those 4 things together? And we literally put it on a grid and see, how do you use your strengths to leverage the opportunities? That's probably the most important question. What strengths do you have that can leverage opportunities?
That's really interesting. I love that, because you know what? It shows that there's a path that you can be on. It doesn't mean that you know exactly where every step of the way that you're going, but at least if you feel like there's some control, because I think that's what's so scary for people right now in the business, is they're just like, I don't know anything, but they do. They have there's going to be some or 1 or 2 assumptions that, and they might just be about yourself. I like the one that you said where, your most, important employee, that they may not be available anymore. But you know what? You are your greatest asset.
Right.
You can start with you.
Right, for sure.
I love that.
Then I would say the next most important question would be, how is your sales process going to change? Right, because we'll be back to some sort of interaction, but how is your sales process going to change? And people have learned a lot, I think, during this time. You know, talk to a bunch of guys in the financial services industry. They're doing okay.
Yeah.
And they love not having to travel to people, you know? So what is your sales process, first of all? Do you have one? If you don't, you need one. And then how is that process going to change as we move into these 3 phases?
Right. No, that's really, there's certain people, like for instance, in our networking group that I didn't really know how to help prior to this because, for instance, financial services, you know, how do you help somebody that you haven't actually used yourself? You know what I mean? But I've heard great testimonials about them, but I wasn't quite sure, how do I refer? But what's amazing to me is that their products have become, and not just their products, I mean, their services have become incredibly, beneficial because there's so much that you can't control in the markets that you really need somebody to kind of decipher it for you. And if you trust the person, you really need to have a financial advisor, right? So I think it's amazing that some of the people that I didn't know how to help or maybe weren't getting the benefit of, for instance, master networks are getting it now because this just kind of upended everything that, again, the assumption, right?
Right, right. I think I would put in that same category estate planning attorneys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right. And there's a whole bunch of them. There's people we have, those people in the nursing field, the home nursing. I mean, that's going to be big because people are not sending their loved ones to nursing homes, type of things like, so it's very interesting. And obviously our property and our property managers, things like that, commercial real estate. You really could go to every industry and say it's like a twist.
Right. So I think as we've been talking a little bit more about some of the people who are having difficulties. Those people who are thriving in this environment, they need to plan too. They need to go through these stages, and because this is really their opportunity, right? How do they continue to shine in this? How does the cleaning services people make themselves stand out as unique in this environment? You can't just say we're the best.
Right.
We're on time. You've got to find something that makes you really unique.
Yeah, no, I've really been looking into that as I have more and more face-to-faces with people, is to try to find out what's going on with them. And I mean, I'm just having a face-to-face, but what's amazing is that, they can go talk to you. You'll be willing to speak to them for 30 minutes, start getting them on the track. And then if it works out, you guys can work on with them on that strategic plan and those 3 phases as almost like plugging into the phase as it happens, right?
Right. Exactly.
Using assumptions and all of the other tools that you have as a business coach and a
right. And I would say, Tina, they may just get some really good information from talking to me for 30 minutes and be able to figure something out. So that's where I'm with that. I'm always willing to give people 30 minutes of my time.
Fantastic. Well, I thank you for giving me 20 minutes of your time today, because, this is, and I'd love to, if we could, if you want to, and it works out, I'd love to have another lunch and learn where we actually talk a little bit more about some of the, maybe strategic plans or something else that, as you're finding, because you're in the front lines right now, so you're seeing it, and what, as just as you said, as we first talked about this lunch and learn a few weeks ago, things have changed and you've been actually tweaking that. So I'm sure you'll probably have more information as we start getting into opening up, New York State, certainly, and then beyond.
Yeah. Happy to.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on with me.
You're welcome. Thanks for your time.
Talk to you later.